Hello, my name is Glenn. Welcome to my boat project. I own a 1971 Aquarius 21-footer. It is a trailer sailor, which means it has a keel that retracts up inside the hull in the cabin of the sailboat. If you watched my first episode, you know that I gutted the inside, and now it's time to start working on the outside. I will start by removing all the yellow paint and the hardware from the stern and patching the holes, gouges, and scratches. I wasn't considering this part of the hull as far as my painting goes, but I really hated the ugly hole. So this was my prep work, and I don't really like it. I see I didn't give it enough sanding on the sides, and that's just the way it is. It was one of those things I found really important to patch and take care of right away, and so I did it. It may need more work. And now we see a bunch of stress cracks from the bottom of the rudder. The pintle fits into the gunion there, and apparently it's hit some things. For this project, you will need some sort of a sander. I used a random orbital sander, and lots of sanding discs. I used 60 grit. It's also going to take a lot of patience and determination, because sanding the hull of a boat is one of those things that you're never done, and you never know if you're done. You're going to need some painter's tape and some way to mask off anything you don't want to paint. I use some dry guide. I'll talk about that in a little bit. That's optional. And as far as the paint goes, you're going to need agreeable weather. And that weather is going to be shaded, not direct sun, preferably not windy, and the temperature should be somewhere between, like, in the 60s, really. One thing I found, and I was painting in the summer, even at 70 and 75 degrees in the shade, it was too hot, and the solvent was evaporating too quickly, and it was really affecting the paint job. I like denatured alcohol to wipe down the surface of the boat before I paint. And then you're also going to need some primer and a 1/8 inch foam roller, and either a foam brush or a really fine, soft, high quality bristle brush. Here's what the booty looks like sanded, and then patched with some fairing compound, and a first pass with primer, and a second pass with primer. Here's my sanding job on the rest of the hull, the front part, and after I faired it with some thickened epoxy to try to fill in the holes and pinholes, and we have a layer of primer, some more sanding and filling, trying to fill pinholes, and oops, I made a mistake. Lesson learned. And this is what happens when you sand and the primer and or paint is not fully cured. You go through lots and lots of discs. But she looks beautiful now. Am I done? No, I don't think so. It's a little bit lumpy-rumpy. Don't like. This is what the hull looks like after sanding it. After its second coat of paint, so it has 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of paint, and then I put this dry guide on, black dry guide. It's like powdered graphite, and there's some right there in it. It stays in the low points as you sand off the high points, and it makes it easier to see where you've been and what needs to be done, because working on white paint is really hard to see the different textures, and unless you have the lighting just right. So this is the side I have not done. I don't know if you can see those pinholes. There's 3 right there, 2, 1, all along there, little tiny pinholes that I've tried filling in with thickened epoxy, barely thickened, so it would flow a little bit better. And primer and paint, and none of them would do the job. So I don't know. So I'll just keep putting on more and more paint. There is no burn through to primer, like you see there, and this, so the first coat of paint was with a sprayer, and that left it really orange peely and not even that smooth to the touch. It's kind of like this. So this was a roll and tip that I did solo with a foam roller and a foam brush, and it's okay. I think I could live with it. There's some spots that aren't great, but a second coat would do that well. The only problem it had was these little specks. I guess it's foam that broke off of the roller, or dust, don't quite know. But anyways, it's getting there. It's almost done. I think I'm gonna do 2 more coats of paint, and I think the next coat will be sprayed and then the final coat rolled. Pretty sure. But I'm gonna finish this side with the sanding, because this side is really, really smooth. I know you can't feel it, but ooh-wee, that is nice. After I finished the starboard side with the dry guide, I applied it to the port, and then here it is as I'm taking it off. You can see the difference. And here's the stern, and you can really see the sags after I sanded it out. Now here's the port side sanded again, and a little bit more. So there is residue because the gel coat is pretty porous. This is what my sanding discs look like, and I'm using the mesh discs. And what would happen is it would clump up, and I waited twice as long as the manufacturer said to let it cure, and it still was a little bit soft and gummy almost, and this would clog up the sanding discs in just a few seconds. Now I use Total Boat primer, Topside primer, and Topside paint. I use the wet edge paint. And as a reminder, I did the painting in the summertime, and it was in the 70s. A few times it got up to 80 degrees. I would paint in the morning or paint in the evening, and so the temperature would go up. And it did not cure. I really needed probably 4 times as long to let it cure. I'm a little bit ticked at Total Boat for giving inaccurate instructions on cure time. Done at last. There's technically 5 coats of paint on top of 2 coats of primer. A lot of learning involved, and it's done and looks great. Well, it's time for reckoning. I just put on the last coat of the navy blue paint for my stripe, and so that's about 4 coats. Yeah, 4 coats it took to fully cover it up. Am I happy about it? I'll show you why. Well, I just peeled off the tape, and I'm not happy because there's some seep through of the blue paint, and that black is from the electrical tape that I used. And this, I don't know if, yeah, you can see that. That is a layer of paint that came off. So I used electrical tape to mask this off, and it worked well for most of it. You can see some yellow from the dry erase marker I used to mark my line, so that'll wipe off in a minute. But that right there is raw fiberglass. So the electrical tape peeled off all the paint and the primer. You can see it along here too. And the line is not as sharp as I would like. This was the yellow painter's tape. I'll show you in a second. So that did a very fine line. The electrical tape did not do as fine of a line, and it tore off the paint in several places. There's also a bit of a jaggedy line there, which I think that will come right off. But this is still a little bit wet, so I'll come at it in another day. There's some more electrical tape schmutz. And see, lots of yellow. It looks pretty good along here. So this was electrical tape, so I can't say it was a complete failure. But this line is not nearly as sharp as I would like it to be. And then there's that. That's not pretty. I battled that the whole time. I knew that was going to be a mess. I'm not quite sure what to do. I need to think about this. I'm not sure what to do about it. I don't want to redo the whole thing, but at the same time, I don't know that I can touch it up in a way that will make it look good. So I'm just gonna have to think about it. Maybe ask for some help from other boat painters. And then I'll get back to you and let you know what I decide, or I'll show you what I did. What I learned today is that 90% of the quality of a paint job completely depends on preparation. The other 10% is your technique and your skill. And I highly recommend you practice with whatever means you're going to paint your boat with on a similar surface. Now, I stress it like that because I sort of tested out my sprayer and sprayed some old plywood, which is kind of porous and, water aged. So it really wasn't a good comparison. And all I really did was I sprayed it a few times just to get the feel for how the sprayer worked. I bought a sprayer for this purpose and I needed to use it. But I really would have been better off painting something like smooth fiberglass or anything else and trying to do a good paint job on it. A piece of metal, piece of plastic, doesn't matter as long as it has that smooth, tight surface. Now, after you're done preparing the surface, prepare it again because it's probably not good enough. The paint won't hide anything except color, and even then, maybe not. And this kind of paint you have to put on really, really micro thin, almost to like 1 molecule thickness, it seems like. And multiple layers are far better than trying to do it in 1 or 2 coats like you would your inside walls of your house. Electrical tape, I liked it. It went on easily and it could curve, but also it's nature to allow it to flex up or down, laterally. Also was its downside because it was harder to make a gradual curve. It would do some sharp ones sometimes. And as you saw, it left some residue. Now I could remove that residue probably with acetone. I'm sure that would be easy, but it didn't leave that tight, crisp line like I wanted. Also, test out your painting in different weather if you can. Test it out in the kind of weather you're going to be in. So the instructions on Total Boat's wet edge and topside primer, I don't recall what it said offhand right now. I don't have it in front of me, but whatever it said, I gave it at least twice as long and found that that wasn't nearly long enough. So then I came back like another day or 2 later, and it still wasn't enough. It came out a little bit gooey. So, and I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so the humidity is in the summer 40 to 60%. It varies. And our temperatures were getting up to the upper 80s on some of the days when I was doing this. So this seemed like pretty ideal conditions. All I'm saying is it's going to take some work and some trial and learn. Good luck.